Okay, folks, this is a story with some recent developments here. So, Trump's sanctions on ICC prosecutor have halted tribunal's work. That's right. The International Criminal Court's chief prosecutor has lost access to his email and his bank accounts have been frozen. The Hague based court's American staffers have been told that if they travel to the U.S., they risk arrest. Some non-governmental organizations have stopped working with the ICC, and the leaders of one won't even reply to emails from court officials. Those are just some of the hurdles facing court staff since U.S. President Donald Trump in February slapped sanctions on its chief prosecutor, Karim Khan, according to interviews with current and former ICC officials, international lawyers, and human rights advocates. One reason the court has been hamstrung is that it relies heavily on contractors and non-governmental organizations who, according to these sanctions, are, of course, now barred from interacting with the ICC. And by the way, it broke right before we went on the air. The UN has just said that despite Israel's proclamations of allowing limited aid into Gaza, no aid at this moment has reached a single Palestinian. So much for that. So we will have to follow up on that, but that is what reports are saying. And meanwhile, it's the ICC who is being sanctioned by the United States. Those businesses and groups have curtailed work on behalf of the court because they were concerned about being targeted by U.S. authorities, according to current, and former ICC staffers. Microsoft, for example, canceled Khan's email address, forcing the prosecutor to move to Proton Mail, a Swiss email provider, ICC staffers said. His bank accounts in his home country of the UK have been blocked. Microsoft did not respond to a request for comment. Well, Microsoft has been in the news this week anyway. Earlier this week, Microsoft says it provided AI to Israeli military for the war, but denies use to harm people in Gaza. No, of course not. Microsoft acknowledged Thursday that it sold advanced artificial intelligence and cloud computing services to the Israeli military during the war in Gaza and aided in efforts to locate and rescue Israeli hostages. But the company also said it has found no evidence to date that its Azure platform and AI technologies were used to target or harm people in Gaza. The unsigned blog post on Microsoft's corporate website appears to be the company's first public acknowledgement of its deep involvement in the war. Microsoft said Thursday that employee concerns and media reports had prompted the company to launch an internal review and hire an external firm to undertake additional fact-finding. The statement did not identify the outside firm or provide a copy of its report. They basically said, yeah, we looked into it, and turns out we're just helping with some intelligence matters and some hostage freeing matters, but we're sure none of this technology has been used to do any harm to any Palestinians, of course. But here is an organization here, not much of an organization, I suppose, but a group of workers who have banded together. No Azure for apartheid. So these are Microsoft workers who are protesting the company's pro-Israel orientation, and they recently disrupted a conference, shouting down the Microsoft CEO. So let's take a look at this.
To VS Code, just a couple of weeks ago,
Satya, how about you show them how Microsoft is killing Palestinians? How about you show them how Israeli war crimes are powered by Azure? As a Microsoft worker, I refuse.
Are you having a seat right here? Sorry. Are you having a seat right here? Oh, then you can have
So that's Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft. They just put out an alternate angle of this, which is a little bit longer, with some of the aftermath of this intervention.
and when it comes to VS Code, just a couple of weeks ago,
Satya, how about you show them how Microsoft is killing Palestinians? How about you show them how Israeli war crimes are powered by Azure? As a Microsoft worker, I refuse to be complicit in this genocide. Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
Okay, I'm taking them right down on the... escalators. If you guys want to take them out, we'll take the phone.
Why are they taking the phone?
We'll get her. You get it before you pull me out?
See, that's what I learned.
Can't take my phone.
That's what I learned in my first intervention. Don't bring anything
Can
they
I put it
can
in my
hold.
pocket, please?
Exactly.
I'll do it.
Put it in your pocket.
No Azure for apartheid! Israeli war crimes thrown on Azure. You all need to do your own research. Look into it.
Well, they were not done. Day 2 of the conference is apparently going on right now, and they just posted this since we went live. So we will take a look at this. They were undeterred. Here they are back for a second day. So here they are. This time they are shouting down the executive vice president of Microsoft Core AI. So let's take a look at this video right here.
Jay, you're complicit in the genocide in Gaza. My people are suffering because of you. How dare you? How dare you talk about AI? My people are suffering. Cut ties with Israel. Cut ties. No answer for apartheid. No answer for apartheid. No answer for apartheid. No answer for apartheid. Free, free Palestine. Free! Free Palestine!
So there's, like I said, second day in a row. So this is their Twitter page. It's a small group, obviously, so I encourage you to go follow them. No As for Apartheid is the handle. They are Microsoft workers demanding that Microsoft terminate all Azure contracts and partnership with the Israeli military and government. Sign their petition. So here's their website. We won't read the petition in full, but we'll read their core demands. We refuse to be complicit. Join the growing No Tech for Apartheid movement and demand that Microsoft live up to its own purported ethical values by ending its direct and indirect complicity in Israeli apartheid and genocide. Join us alongside students, teachers, activists, cultural workers, healthcare workers, and trade unions, alongside the International Court of Justice, alongside ordinary people in the streets and Palestinians worldwide, in building a new future where Palestine is free. And their 4 demands: IOF, Israeli Occupation Forces, as they are more accurately described, in my view, obviously, ends Microsoft's complicity in Israeli genocide and apartheid by terminating all Azure contracts and partnerships with the Israeli military and government, disclose all ties, make all ties to the Israeli state, military, and tech industry publicly known, including weapons manufacturers and contractors, conduct a transparent and independent audit of Microsoft's technology, contracts, services, and investments, call for a ceasefire, obviously self-explanatory, and protect employees, ensure the safety of Palestinian, Arab, Muslim, and allied employees by protecting pro-Palestinian speech, actions, and fundraising initiatives on internal company platforms. So 2 points here. Number one, when it comes to speech, this is an example of a boycott action that, if a guy like Michael Lawler had his way, would be illegal if, say, the United Nations endorsed this group. So if the United Nations endorsed this movement, then it would be illegal for us to promote this group. Thankfully, that failed, and so we are in the clear for now. Number 2, yeah, what they're talking about here, I mean, this is an example of, even though this is not an explicitly Marxist or communist-oriented movement, this is Marxism. This is how you influence policy. Workers organizing at their place of work. That is ultimately one avenue, and I would argue it's a pretty powerful one. Microsoft put out this statement in response to pressure from groups like this. That statement was obviously not to their satisfaction. It was not to the satisfaction of the Associated Press even, right? And so this is the kind of pressure that you have to put on companies like this, right? And this is why it's so important to have a government that will allow for the exercise of free speech, i.e., advocating boycotts like this, right? I mean, Microsoft has to understand that people are not going to want to do business with them if they are providing this kind of support to the IDF. That's totally legal. That is totally constitutional. And those liberties have to be protected to make this kind of organizing possible, because this kind of organizing is powerful. It does work. We've seen it work. And so good on these guys for doing this. This is the kind of stuff you have to do. You have to organize your workplace. That is a powerful place. Things can happen there, irrespective of who wins what election. In terms of on the government side, yeah, you have to make sure that you have enough people in there. Thankfully, knock on wood, this time there were enough MAGA hardliners to shut that anti-boycott bill down. Because what if an international body endorses a movement like this, and all of a sudden that movement is criminalized in the United States, even with our codified First Amendment? What happens when they criminalize movements like this? Gets very dangerous very quickly. But good on these workers, and good on them for going right back and doing this 2 days in a row.
This is really, if you look at this struggle and the backlash to it, it's really an excellent example of the way that Zionism has weaponized the premises of wokeness to support this eminently settler colonial project. Because part of the reason that a lot of people over the last decade, at least, I feel, have been able to promote causes that might superficially resemble classic civil rights or social justice kind of causes while being really off-putting and repulsive, the reason they've been able to dominate the conversation. It's something he says in there's a movie about Basquiat, and the voiceover narration at the beginning, which is probably unfairly dismissive of Basquiat, but the overall point I think is true. Nobody wants to be the person who didn't recognize Van Gogh. If you get an art history degree, the whole degree is basically about all the critics who got it wrong in the past. So it makes people not want to say no to anything, right? They don't want to say no to anything. I think all the images of the authorities being so wrong about segregation and other issues in the country, nobody, even CEOs, they don't want to be that person, with this one exception. And you couldn't think of an example that is more genuinely analogous to the fights against the Vietnam War, the fights against segregation, the fights against misogyny. You couldn't think of anything that is more spiritually aligned with that than this. And people, CEOs of these tech companies are notoriously libs, right? They like to see themselves as enlightened oligarchs, as David Brooks's book gets into, the bobos, right? They see themselves as an enlightened, cool ruling class, right? Certainly not ones to be Bull Connor in that kind of an exchange, right? So how do you get them to be Bull Connor when that is such a core value of theirs, not to be that person? Well, claim that the people who are the Bull Connors are the protesters, right? Because they're anti-Semitic for being anti-Zionist. Like, this whole thing doesn't work without the Zionists making that claim. Without that, the whole thing falls apart. They're completely dependent on that equation. And that's why they so furiously try to pass legislation like Lawler was pushing, because they know this. They know that you disconnect that in the public mind, the jig is up.
That's right. Yeah, Zionism. This is a good phrase. Maybe we can popularize this. Zionism is wokeness with a lobby. That's what happens when wokeness gets a lobby, right? You think wokesters are annoying? Yeah, they're annoying. When they have a lobby, that's when it becomes very dangerous, right? And that's what this is. This is just organized, concentrated, wokeness in that respect. Censoriousness, shutting down conversations with charged accusations that do not apply to the current conversation. That's what they're doing. That's the only reason why you could ever even begin to attempt to justify something like this. You can't win on the merits, these kinds of arguments. They just had NYU. A kid just got his diploma
Yep.
taken away because
Yep.
in his speech he gave a pro-Palestine speech at the graduation ceremony, and the dean says it was out of place to give such a one-sided political view. Oh, really? So if he gave a one-sided view of any one of these issues that you guys in academia embrace as
Yep.
virtuous liberal issues, you would call that one-sided and revoke his
Trans
diploma?
women are women.
Yeah, what if he gave a pro-trans speech? Right. Or an anti-racist speech in any other context? I would argue a pro-Palestine speech is an anti-racist speech in the best sense of the
Yes.
phrase.
Well,
But what if he
that's
did
how the
something like that?
Zionists have completely flipped reality.
Right,
Because now
exactly.
that's supposed to be a racist speech.
Right, exactly. Right, and this is what I mean. Wokeness with a lobby, right? Censoriousness with a lobby, right? You could distort things like that when it comes to that. Well, when it comes to this as well, Microsoft. I'm sure this was one of the companies that hang, the Black Lives Matter flag in the Pride Month and all of that. And look at this, dragging these people out. Clearly, some of these people, Arabs and Muslims themselves, protesting the murder of their people with the assist from this AI. We've covered Lavender AI, Palantir. Well, Microsoft too. Like, these ties run very deep, and they go and say something about it, and look at how they are treated, and look at how invisibilized their movement is by the mainstream. I mean, I just heard of these guys this morning. They only have 1,800 followers. That's why I say go and give them a follow and go and spread the word, because students organizing on campus is powerful to an extent, and that's great, and we encourage that. But workers organizing their workplace, that's next level. That's where it really is at. And so good on them. Hey, thanks for watching our video. We're currently raising money to produce our documentary film on the Uhuru movement. Go to givesendgo.com/do dissidents to chip in.
Every dollar you give goes towards the project. We do not take any kind of salary on these. We mostly live on Gatorade when we're on the road, so even solid food is iffy, just enough to get by. But we do not take any pay for this. Every dollar actually goes into what we need to shoot the project. The Uhuru movement is a subject that really deserves more exposure. Everybody heard about it through the court case, and that was an important thing to elevate. But they've done incredible community work demonstrating a different way that is socialist and not dependent on the government at the same time, which a lot of people don't even realize that still exists in the tradition of the Black Panther food and education programs. And to show there is such a strong community like that with such strong leadership is really important, particularly at this historical moment.
Yeah, so we're really excited about doing the project, but we need your help. So go to givesendgo.com/do dissidents to chip in. Thanks very much for your support.